I'm Samantha Mitchell, 32. And the day I should have been walking down the aisle with my parents beside me became the day I realized they'd never truly been there for me at all. The empty front row seats reserved with their names stung more than any argument we'd ever had. For 5 years, I'd been paying their mortgage while struggling to save for my own home. Their betrayal that day changed everything. If you're watching this, drop a comment telling me where you're from, hit subscribe, and stay for a story about how sometimes cutting financial ties is the only way to heal emotional wounds. I grew up in a modest neighborhood in Boston where most families lived comfortably within their means. Except mine. My parents, Karen and Gary Mitchell, were the kind of people who bought new cars they couldn't afford and took vacations on credit cards they'd max out. From my earliest memories, I understood financial stress before I understood math. "Sam, can you tell the man on the phone I'm not home?" Mom would whisper when bill collectors called. I was 7 the first time she asked me to lie for her. I knew which utility companies were the most lenient with late payments. While other kids got allowances, I got anxiety about whether the electricity would stay on. My childhood bedroom had a beautiful view of our backyard, but was perpetually cold in winter, because my parents prioritized appearances over paying the heating bill. They'd host dinner parties with expensive wine while ignoring past due notices piling up in the drawer. Despite this chaotic foundation, I excelled academically. School became my sanctuary, a place where effort correlated directly with results. My teachers noticed my dedication, and by high school, I was taking advanced placement classes and working part-time at the local library. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Jennings, was the first adult who truly saw my potential beyond my family circumstances. "You're going to break the cycle, Samantha," she told me while helping with college applications. "Just remember that your parents' financial choices don't define your future." College was a patchwork of scholarships, loans, and 3 simultaneous jobs. While classmates complained about cafeteria food, I was grateful for guaranteed meals. My roommate Allison would invite me home for holidays when I couldn't afford the bus ticket back to Boston. Her parents, David and Laura, showed me what financially responsible adults looked like. They budgeted, saved for retirement, and lived within their means. Meanwhile, my parents bought a boat they used twice. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a financial consulting firm in Boston. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days helping wealthy clients manage their assets while my own parents continued their financial self-sabotage. My career advanced quickly. By 27, I had been promoted 3 times and had finally established a small emergency fund and started contributing to my retirement account. Then came the desperate call from my father. "Sammy, we're going to lose the house." His voice cracked over the phone. "The bank says we're 3 months behind, and they're starting foreclosure procedures." The family home, the one stable physical element of my childhood despite the chaos within it, was about to disappear. Against every financial principle I believed in, I agreed to help. "Just until you get back on your feet," I stipulated, transferring enough money to cover their missed payments. "This is temporary," I reminded them as I set up the automatic monthly transfer for their mortgage. "I need you to create a budget and work toward taking this back over." They nodded earnestly, promising to turn things around. My mother even cried, thanking me for saving them. Dad promised they'd take financial literacy classes. They did neither. 1 month of payments turned into 6. 6 months turned into a year. Each time I tried to discuss an exit strategy, there was always a new crisis. Unexpected medical bills, essential home repairs, car problems. My temporary assistance had become their permanent solution. 5 years passed with me carrying their mortgage while trying to save for my own future. Every financial milestone I should have reached in my early 30s, homeownership, substantial retirement savings, investment growth, remained frustratingly out of reach. It was during this time that I met Jason Harris. We were assigned to the same client project. He specialized in tax law while I handled the investment portfolio. Intelligent, responsible, and kind, Jason represented everything stable I'd craved in my life. Our professional relationship evolved into friendship, and eventually romance. Unlike previous boyfriends who couldn't understand my financial anxiety or my complicated family dynamics, Jason never judged my situation. When I nervously explained my parents' mortgage arrangement during our 5th date, he didn't tell me I was being exploited. though concern flickered across his face. "You have a generous heart, Sam," he said instead, reaching for my hand across the table. "But I hope you're protecting yourself too." As our relationship deepened, Jason witnessed firsthand the toll my financial obligation took. He saw how I declined professional development opportunities that required travel, because I couldn't afford them after making my parents' mortgage payment. He noticed how I calculated every restaurant bill, grocery purchase, and utility costs while my parents posted Facebook photos from weekend getaways. "They took another trip?" he asked gently one evening, watching me scroll past pictures of my parents at a winery tour. "Dad says it was a special deal they couldn't pass up," I replied, the familiar knot of resentment tightening in my stomach. Jason never pushed, but his quiet support helped me recognize the unhealthy patterns I'd been enabling. Though I wasn't ready to address the imbalance. They were my parents, after all. What kind of daughter would I be if I let them lose their home? Jason proposed on a crisp autumn evening at Portland Headlight in Maine. We'd taken a weekend trip to see the fall foliage, and as the sun set over the Atlantic, painting the lighthouse in golden hues, he dropped to one knee. "Samantha Mitchell, you've shown me what real strength and compassion look like. I want to build a life with you. One where we support each other's dreams and face challenges together. Will you marry me?" The vintage emerald ring he offered belonged to his grandmother, meaningful, beautiful, and didn't put us in debt. It was perfectly us. "Yes," I whispered, then shouted, "Yes," as he slipped the ring onto my finger. Nearby tourists applauded, and someone captured the moment on camera, later sending us the photo that would become my phone background. The drive back to Boston bubbled with excitement as we called friends with the news. My college roommate Allison screamed with joy. My colleague Taylor insisted on hosting an engagement party. Jason's parents, Robert and Diana, immediately FaceTimed us, his mother tearfully welcoming me to the family. I saved the call to my parents for last, hoping their reaction would match the joy I'd received from others. "We're engaged," I announced when my mother answered. A pause followed. "That's nice, honey. When's the wedding?" No congratulations. No questions about the proposal. Just immediately jumping to logistics. "We haven't set a date yet," I replied, my enthusiasm dimming. "We just wanted to share the news." "Well, you know big weddings are expensive," my father chimed in from the extension. "We certainly can't contribute financially, not with our situation." "I wasn't asking you to," I said quietly as Jason squeezed my hand supportively. "Just make sure you don't go overboard," Mom advised. "Though I've always imagined you getting married at St. Mary's with at least 200 guests. The Mitchell family has a reputation to maintain." By the time we hung up, my joyful bubble had deflated considerably. Jason suggested stopping for ice cream, his simple gesture acknowledging my disappointment without dwelling on it. Over the following weeks, we carefully mapped out a wedding that reflected our values and our budget. We chose a charming historic library that Jason's Aunt Meredith managed, allowing us a discounted rate. We selected a spring date, giving us 16 months to plan and save. Our guest list included 100 people, family and close friends who had genuinely supported our relationship. My first wedding planning conflict with my parents erupted over that guest list. "Only 100 people? That's practically eloping," my mother scoffed during a Sunday dinner at their house. "What about the Andersons? And the Smiths? Your father plays golf with Mr. Smith every month." "Mom, I've met the Smiths exactly twice in my life," I countered. "Jason and I want people who know us as a couple. People will talk if they're not invited," she insisted. "Besides, the Andersons gave you that baby blanket when you were born." The conversation devolved from there, with my parents presenting a list of 43 additional guests, business associates, distant relatives, country club acquaintances, people who had no meaningful connection to my life or relationship. Jason remained diplomatically quiet during these exchanges, but later confessed, "I don't understand why your parents are so focused on appearances when they're not contributing to the costs." I had no answer that didn't sound painfully critical of my own family. Similar tensions arose over every decision. My mother deemed our choice of library venue unconventional and disappointing, despite its elegant architecture and significance to Jason's family. She criticized our buffet dinner plan as tacky, compared to a formal seated service. When I showed her photos of my affordable but beautiful dress from a boutique that specialized in sample sales, she sighed dramatically. I always pictured you in something more special, she said. Each criticism stung, but I tried to involve them nonetheless. I invited my mother to a cake tasting, hoping to share at least one positive wedding planning experience. She spent the entire appointment questioning the baker about whether her creations were sophisticated enough, and suggesting upgrades that would have doubled the cost. Throughout these months, I continued making their mortgage payments, increasingly aware of the irony. I was financing their lifestyle while they criticized the wedding I was paying for myself. The final breaking point in wedding planning came 3 months before the ceremony. My parents insisted we change our invitation wording to list them as hosts, despite contributing nothing, and demanded we add a champagne toast because the Mitchells have standards. I can't add another expense, I explained for the dozenth time. We're at our budget limit. You always find money for what matters to you, my mother replied sharply. Like that trip to Chicago you and Jason took last summer. The trip had been a professional conference where Jason had presented research, and I had networked with potential clients. We had shared an economical hotel room and brought sandwich supplies to avoid restaurant costs. That's not fair, I finally snapped. I've been paying your mortgage for 5 years. Do you have any idea what I could have done with that money? I could own a home by now. A heavy silence filled the room. My father looked away while my mother's expression hardened. So now you're keeping score? She asked coldly. Throwing your assistants in our faces? That's not what family does. I left their house in tears that day, with Jason driving in silence until I was ready to talk. They don't see it, I whispered finally. They don't see what this has cost me. Maybe it's time to prioritize our future, Jason suggested gently. After the wedding, we should reconsider this arrangement. I nodded, but wedding obligations kept me from making any immediate changes. Despite the tension, my parents confirmed they would attend the ceremony. My father even awkwardly mentioned walking me down the aisle during our last conversation the week before the wedding. I've got my suit cleaned and ready, he assured me. Great, I replied, allowing myself a small flutter of hope. I'll see you both Saturday morning. My wedding day dawned with perfect spring weather, sunshine warming the air after weeks of rain, as if nature itself approved of our union. I arrived at the library at 9 in the morning with my bridesmaids, settling into the historic building's bridal suite to prepare. My friend Allison arranged my hair while Taylor handled makeup. Meredith, Jason's aunt, delivered mimosas and pastries, her warmth filling the room with genuine joy. I felt beautiful, supported, and increasingly nervous about one thing. My parents hadn't arrived. They probably hit traffic, Allison suggested when I checked my phone for the 3rd time. The highway from Boston can be unpredictable on weekends. I nodded, but by 10 o'clock with no word. Unease rippled through me. I called both their cell phones straight to voicemail. I texted, "At venue now. Everything okay?" No response. By 11 my makeup was complete, my dress was on, and my parents were still absent. The ceremony was scheduled for 1 o'clock. Photographers arrived, capturing getting ready moments that conspicuously lacked family photos. Should we send someone to their house? Taylor asked, watching me check my phone again. They're only 30 minutes away, I said, forcing calm into my voice. They'll be here. At 11:45, I was standing by the window, phone clutched in my hand, when Meredith entered with an expression that made my stomach drop. Samantha, honey, she began tentatively. Claudia is here. Claudia was Jason's mother's cousin. I'd met her exactly once during our engagement party. Why would she be coming to find me? Claudia stepped into the room, clearly uncomfortable. I'm so sorry to be the one telling you this, but I ran into your mother's friend Barbara at my hair salon last week. She mentioned being excited about their cruise that embarked yesterday. I didn't think anything of it until I noticed your parents weren't here. The room went silent. I felt the blood drain from my face. Cruise, I repeated numbly. A 2-week Mediterranean sailing, Claudia confirmed awkwardly. Barbara said they'd been planning it for months. My knees weakened and I sank onto a nearby chair. A cruise. My parents had deliberately scheduled a vacation during my wedding. They'd lied about attending, let me believe they'd be there right up until the last minute, and then simply left. There must be some mistake, Allison insisted, her arm around my shoulders. With shaking hands, I opened Instagram on my phone. 3 swipes brought me to my mother's profile, which she rarely used. The most recent post, from 14 hours earlier, showed her and my father on a ship deck, champagne glasses raised, with the caption, "Bon voyage. Mediterranean adventure begins. #cruise life #vacation mode." The timestamp matched their departure. Exactly when they would have been driving to my wedding venue. They'd chosen a cruise over their only daughter's wedding day. Hot tears spilled down my cheeks as Taylor rushed for tissues. "Your makeup," she murmured, dabbing gently at my face. "I don't care about my makeup," I whispered, but the mundane concern anchored me, preventing complete emotional collapse. Meredith took charge in that moment of crisis. "Samantha, this is unforgivable of them, but you have choices right now. We can postpone the ceremony if you need time. Or Jason's father has offered to walk you down the aisle. Or you can walk alone." Which would be a powerful statement about the woman you've become despite them. Her practical options pulled me back from the brink of despair. I looked around at these women who had shown up for me, consistently, genuinely, lovingly. What would postponing solve? I asked, finally standing up. They made their choice. I'm making mine. I'm marrying Jason today. I chose to walk alone, a decision that felt suddenly right. The string quartet played Pachelbel's canon as I moved down the aisle, focusing on Jason's face, his eyes widening at the sight of me, then filling with tears as he registered my solitary approach. When I reached him, he squeezed my hands in silent understanding. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered, audible only to me. The ceremony proceeded beautifully. Our vows, written personally, spoke of building a future based on trust, respect, and mutual support. When the officiant pronounced us married, the library erupted in genuine applause from people who truly cared about our happiness. During the reception, I avoided questions about my parents with vague references to unexpected circumstances. Jason's father gave a heartfelt toast welcoming me to their family. My college roommate Allison spoke about our friendship and how Jason had brought peace to my life. "To finding your true family," she concluded, raising her glass. Late that night, as Jason and I returned to our hotel room, I checked my phone one last time. My mother had posted another photo. Sunset from the ship's deck, tagged #best decision ever. I turned off my phone and placed it face down on the nightstand. "I don't want to think about them on our honeymoon," I told Jason as he gathered me into his arms. "Then we won't," he promised, kissing my forehead. "This is our time." But even as we flew to Bermuda the next morning, the wound remained raw and throbbing beneath my joy. Our honeymoon in Bermuda offered temporary escape. For 7 days, Jason and I swam in turquoise waters, explored limestone caves, and fell asleep to the sound of gentle waves. I had dutifully scheduled my parents' mortgage payment before leaving, the automatic transfer a grim reminder of obligation even in paradise. "You're frowning," Jason noted one afternoon as we relaxed on the beach. "Thinking about them? How do people just discard their children?" I asked, digging my toes into the pink sand. What kind of parents choose a vacation over their daughter's wedding? Jason had no answer. Just understanding silence and a gentle hand on mine. Upon returning home, the contrast between my honeymoon peace and reality hit hard. My parents hadn't called or texted, not to apologize, not to ask about the wedding, not even to confirm they'd returned from their cruise. Yet their mortgage payment had cleared my account right on schedule. 3 days after our return, my cousin Rachel requested to meet for coffee. Rachel was my mother's niece, 5 years older than me, and we'd never been particularly close. Her sudden interest raised immediate concerns. "I need to tell you something," she said after awkward small talk at a cafe near my office. "Your mom has been badmouthing you to the entire family. She's telling everyone you've become elitist since marrying Jason, and that you abandoned them financially when they needed help with their house." I nearly choked on my latte. "What?" Rachel nodded grimly. "When I pointed out they missed your wedding for a cruise, she claimed you changed the date without telling them after they'd already paid for their trip. Non-refundable, she said. That's completely false, I gasped. We set the date 16 months ago. It never changed. I figured, Rachel sighed. Look, I've always known Aunt Karen was difficult. But this seems different. More calculated. Why are you telling me this? I asked, suspicious of her sudden loyalty. Because she tried to borrow money from me last week, Rachel admitted. Said you'd cut them off without warning and they might lose their house. When I mentioned their Mediterranean cruise, she got defensive and hung up. The pieces began shifting in my mind, forming a disturbing new pattern. How long have they been planning this cruise? I asked. At least 6 months, Rachel replied. They put down a deposit back in November. Barbara told my mom it was some special anniversary package they'd been saving for. 6 months. While I was addressing wedding invitations and they were confirming their attendance, they had been planning their escape and saving for a luxury cruise while I paid their mortgage. After Rachel left, I called Jason, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. I need to look at something. Can you meet me at their house? We had a spare key for emergencies. This felt like one. Their house was empty, mail piled up inside the door. We went straight to my father's home office, where he kept financial records. What I found shattered any remaining illusions. Bank statements showed their financial situation was nothing like they portrayed. Yes, they had debt, but from luxury purchases, not necessities. They had multiple credit cards nearing their limits, but also a vacation savings account that had accumulated thousands over the years I'd been paying their mortgage. Their cruise had cost nearly $10,000. Most devastating was finding mortgage documents showing they had refinanced the house 2 years earlier, taking out substantial equity. The new, higher payment I'd been making had funded their lifestyle, while I delayed my own financial goals. They've been using me, I whispered, staring at the papers. For years. Jason, normally gentle and reserved, was visibly angry. This is financial abuse, Sam. That word abuse hit hard. I'd never considered myself a victim. I was strong, independent, successful. But sitting among evidence of years of manipulation, I couldn't deny the pattern. Let me show you something, Jason said quietly, pulling up a financial planning spreadsheet on his tablet. He'd calculated what my parents' mortgage payments had cost me over 5 years. Not just the direct payments, but the opportunity cost of delayed investments, compounded interest lost, and postponed homeownership. The total made me physically ill. I could have bought a house, I whispered. We could have already started our life together in our own home. In the following days, I immersed myself in research, finding articles and books about financial manipulation and family exploitation. I started therapy sessions with Dr. Winters, a psychologist specializing in family trauma. What you're describing is a parent-child role reversal, she explained during our second session. You became the responsible caretaker while they remained in childlike roles, expecting provision without accountability. But they're my parents, I argued weakly. Aren't children supposed to help their parents? There's a difference between supporting aging parents through genuine hardship and enabling destructive behavior, Dr. Winters replied. Healthy family support has boundaries and promotes independence. What you've described is dependence and exploitation. Each therapy session peeled back another layer of my family dynamic. I recognized patterns from childhood, the subtle guilt manipulation, the emotional withholding when I didn't comply with their wishes, the constant expectation that I would sacrifice while they indulged. Jason supported my healing journey without pushing his own agenda. Whatever you decide about the mortgage, I'm with you, he assured me. But I want you to make that decision from strength, not obligation. 2 weeks after our discovery, my parents returned home. They made no contact until the 28th of the month, 3 days before their mortgage payment was due. Just checking in. My mother's text read casually. Hope married life is treating you well. No mention of the wedding. No acknowledgement of their absence. No apology. Just a transparent attempt to ensure their money would continue flowing. I didn't respond. The next day my father called. Did you get your mother's message? He asked when I answered. She's worried since you didn't reply. I've been busy, I said neutrally. Well, we're back from our trip. It was fantastic, you should see the photos. Hey, just making sure everything's set for the house payment on the 1st. And there it was, the real purpose of the call, barely disguised by perfunctory small talk. No mention of missing one of the most important days of my life. We should talk about that, I said. In person. A pause. Is there a problem? His voice carried an edge of worry. Let's discuss it tomorrow. Your house at 7. I hung up before he could respond, my hand shaking but my resolve solidifying. The time for enabling was over. Jason offered to accompany me to my parents' house, but this confrontation needed to be mine alone. I'll be waiting at home, he promised, kissing me goodbye. Call if you need me. The familiar drive to my childhood home felt different now. Houses I'd passed hundreds of times seemed to watch my approach with new awareness. I parked in the driveway rather than on the street, a small act of claiming space I'd earned through years of payments. My mother answered the door with an artificial smile that didn't reach her eyes. There's my newlywed daughter. Come in, come in. The house looked exactly as it always had, tastefully decorated, projecting an image of comfortable success that I now knew was largely funded by my contributions. Fresh flowers sat in a crystal vase on the coffee table, another unnecessary expense when mortgage payment day loomed. My father emerged from the kitchen with a drink in hand. There she is. How's married life treating you? Their performance of normalcy was surreal after what they'd done. I remained standing while they settled onto their plush sofa, purchased 2 years earlier when they claimed they couldn't afford their property tax bill. I want to discuss the mortgage payments, I began without preamble. My mother's smile tightened. Is there a problem with this month's transfer? We were counting on that. I imagine you are, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. Just like I was counting on you being at my wedding. An uncomfortable silence descended. My father shifted in his seat while my mother's expression hardened. That's why you're here? To guilt us about the cruise? She asked defensively. We explained in our note that this was a special anniversary trip. Non-refundable. What note? I asked. They exchanged glances. The note we left with Jason's aunt, my father said uncertainly, explaining the situation. There was no note, I stated flatly. There was no explanation. You simply didn't show up. Well, there must have been some miscommunication. My mother dismissed with a wave. These things happen. The important thing is that you had your day and we had our trip and now we can all move forward. Speaking of moving forward, about the mortgage payment. The audacity stole my breath. They weren't even going to pretend to apologize. I found your financial records, I said quietly. Their expressions shifted instantly. Alarm replacing false congeniality. You went through our private papers? My father demanded, anger rising. You had no right. I had every right. I countered. I've been paying your mortgage for 5 years. That gives me a right to understand exactly what I've been funding. I removed a folder from my bag, opening it to reveal copies of their bank statements, credit card bills, and the refinancing documents. You took equity out of the house 2 years ago, I continued, laying papers on the coffee table. You increased the mortgage I was paying without telling me. You've been saving for your cruise while claiming financial hardship. My mother's face flushed. How we manage our finances is our business. It became my business when you made me responsible for your house payment, I replied, my voice gaining strength. You've been using me to fund your lifestyle while I delayed buying my own home. Now you're just being dramatic, my father scoffed, though his eyes avoided the damning papers before him. We hit a rough patch and needed help. That's what family does. Family doesn't manipulate and lie, I said. Family doesn't skip their daughter's wedding for a cruise purchased with money saved while she pays their bills. So this is about the wedding again, my mother sighed theatrically. You always were sensitive. One missed event and suddenly you're tallying up every cent like we're business associates instead of family. Her dismissal of my wedding as one missed event crystallized everything wrong with our relationship. It wasn't about the money, it was about value and respect. I'm not going to pay your mortgage anymore, I stated firmly. Their reactions were immediate and revealing. No sadness at the relationship damage. No acknowledgement of my feelings, just pure panic about the money. You can't just cut us off, my father exclaimed, rising from his seat. We rely on that payment. You can afford your own mortgage, I replied, pointing to their financial statements. You choose not to prioritize it. After everything we've done for you, my mother hissed, her facade crumbling. This is how you repay us? By abandoning us financially. What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. Skipped my wedding? Lied about your finances? Manipulated me into supporting you, while criticizing my choices. We raised you, she shot back. You provided basic necessities while teaching me to manage your emotional and financial crises. I corrected. I've been parenting you since I was a child. My father shifted tactics, moving from anger to guilt. If you stop paying, we could lose this house. Your childhood home. Is that what you want? 5 years earlier, that approach would have worked instantly. Now I recognized it for the manipulation it was. What I want doesn't seem to factor into your decisions. I replied steadily. You're adults. You have options. You can sell this house and downsize. You can stop discretionary spending. You can get financial counseling. What you can't do is continue exploiting me. Exploiting? My mother's voice rose shrilly. How dare you use that word about your own parents? This is Jason's influence, isn't it? He's turned you against us. Jason has shown me what healthy family support looks like. I acknowledged. But this decision is mine. The last payment has already been made. I won't be making another. My father's face darkened. If you do this, there will be consequences. Family relationships go both ways, Samantha. The threat hung in the air, but instead of fear, I felt a strange lightness. They had already played their ultimate card by missing my wedding. There was nothing left they could take from me. I'm aware of that, I said, gathering my documents. I'm ready to accept those consequences. As I moved toward the door, my mother called after me. This isn't over. You can't just walk away from family obligations. I paused, hand on the doorknob. I've met my family obligations for 5 years while you met none of yours. That arrangement is finished. The drive home felt surreal, terror and liberation battling within me. I'd done it. I'd finally set a boundary that prioritized my well-being over their demands. Jason was waiting with a supportive embrace and no questions. Whatever happened, we'll handle it together, he promised. That night, I slept more peacefully than I had in years, awakening to the first day of my financially independent life. The weeks following my confrontation with my parents unfolded with both expected and surprising developments. As I'd anticipated, they escalated their attempts to regain control. First came angry texts demanding I reconsider. When those went unanswered, emotional manipulation followed. Messages about health concerns, financial catastrophes, and thinly veiled suicide implications. They're using crisis creation to pull you back in, Dr. Winters explained during therapy. Each emergency is designed to override your boundaries with guilt and fear. With Jason's support and Dr. Winters' guidance, I maintained my distance, responding only to verify they weren't in actual danger. For genuine emergencies, I provided information about resources and services rather than money or direct involvement. My father's next approach was recruiting family members as flying monkeys. My Aunt Debbie called to tell me how selfish I was being. 2 cousins sent messages suggesting I was heartless for abandoning my parents. Even my mother's childhood friend Patricia emailed to express her disappointment in my cruel treatment of my family. Notice how none of them mention your parents missing your wedding, Jason observed as I showed him the latest guilt-laden message. They're getting a very edited version of this story. He was right. My parents had crafted a narrative that portrayed them as victims of their ungrateful daughter, carefully omitting their absence from my wedding and their financial deception. Rachel remained my only family ally, having witnessed enough to understand the reality. They tried the same routine with me, she revealed during a lunch meeting. Uncle Gary called asking for a small loan to cover their mortgage after you unexpectedly abandoned them. When I asked about the cruise, he hung up. After 6 weeks of escalating contact attempts, I made the difficult decision to temporarily block my parents' numbers and social media accounts. The constant stress of anticipating their next manipulation tactic was affecting my health and my new marriage. This isn't permanent, I explained to Jason as I adjusted my phone settings. I just need space to heal without their voices in my head. With that digital boundary established, I focused on rebuilding my life without the financial drain of their mortgage. Jason and I met with a financial advisor who helped us create a recovery plan to compensate for years of diverted resources. You're actually in better shape than many couples your age, the advisor noted encouragingly. You've maintained good credit and established solid savings habits despite the circumstances. Within 2 years, you should be ready for homeownership. 2 years instead of 5 more, the timeline adjustment felt like regaining lost time. We began house hunting casually, just to understand the market and clarify our preferences. On weekends, we visited open houses, imagining our future in different neighborhoods and home styles. I like this one, Jason said during one such exploration, standing in a sun-filled kitchen of a modest colonial with a small backyard. I can see us here. Making Sunday breakfast? I suggested, smiling at the image. And maybe someday, teaching a little one to make pancakes, he added carefully, watching my reaction. The thought of children had always been complicated for me. Fear of repeating patterns, worry about my capacity for healthy parenting. But standing in that hopeful space with Jason, I could envision a different kind of family than the one I'd known. I'd like that, I admitted. Not right away, but someday. 3 months after our confrontation, I received an unexpected email from my mother's sister, Aunt Vivian, whom I hadn't seen in years due to a long-standing feud with my mother. I heard about what happened with your parents, she wrote. Karen called asking for money, and when I declined, she went on a tirade about you cutting them off. Knowing my sister, I suspect there's another side to this story. If you're willing to share it, I'm willing to listen without judgment. Over coffee the following week, I gave Aunt Vivian the unvarnished truth. She listened without interruption, occasionally nodding with sad recognition. Your mother has always been this way, she finally said. When we were children, she would spend her allowance immediately, then manipulate our parents into giving her more while I saved mine. Nothing was ever enough, and nothing was ever her fault. This perspective from someone who had known my mother her entire life validated my experience in a way nothing else had. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I was responding to a lifelong pattern I'd been too close to fully recognize. They're facing foreclosure, Aunt Vivian revealed as we prepared to leave. They've been telling family it's because you abandoned them, but I checked with a realtor friend. They've missed 4 payments and haven't responded to the bank's communication attempts. Despite everything, this news twisted painfully in my chest. They haven't even tried to make the payments themselves. Apparently not. They're expecting someone to rescue them, family members, maybe even a miracle. Karen told our cousin she's manifesting a financial windfall, rather than adjusting their spending. 2 days later, I learned from Rachel that my Uncle Stephen had reluctantly agreed to help my parents with their mortgage temporarily, believing their claims of abandonment and hardship. The cycle was continuing, just with a different enabler. Should we warn him? Jason asked when I shared this development. I considered the question seriously. He's an adult making his own choice, just like I did for years. All I can do is be honest if he asks me directly. This new perspective, allowing others their own agency while maintaining my boundaries, represented significant growth in my recovery journey. Meanwhile, Jason and I found an affordable starter home in a developing neighborhood. Our offer was accepted, and with financial assistance from Jason's parents in the form of a properly documented loan with clear repayment terms, we secured a mortgage we could comfortably manage together. The day we signed our closing documents, I experienced a powerful mix of emotions: pride in our achievement, gratitude for healthy family support from Jason's parents, and lingering sadness about my own family's dysfunction. We did it, Jason said, squeezing my hand as we received our new house keys. Our first home. That evening, standing in our empty living room, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. Heard you bought a house while your parents are losing theirs. Hope you're proud of yourself. Some daughter you are. The message, clearly from a family member who had obtained my new number, stung briefly before I deleted it without responding. Their perspective was based on lies and manipulation. I refused to let it taint this milestone. As we settled into our new home and established our life together, I maintained my distance from my parents, though I did unblock their numbers after 3 months of separation. They called occasionally, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry accusations to tearful pleas, but never included genuine accountability or apology. 6 months after our confrontation, I received notice that they had indeed lost their house to foreclosure despite Uncle Stephen's temporary assistance. They had moved into a rental apartment, significantly downsizing their living space but apparently maintaining other spending habits according to social media posts showing restaurant meals and weekend trips. I sent a brief email. I heard about the house. I'm sorry things reached this point. I hope this change allows you to create a more sustainable financial situation. My mother's reply was short. We wouldn't be in this situation if you had maintained your commitment to family. No acknowledgement of their choices. No recognition of reality. The response confirmed I had made the right decision, painful though it remained. Family systems don't change easily. Dr. Winters reminded me during a therapy session. Your growth threatens the established dynamic. Their resistance affirms you're moving in the right direction. Not that you're wrong. As our first anniversary approached, Jason and I focused on creating new traditions and memories in our home. We hosted dinner parties for friends, planted a small garden, and adopted a rescue dog named Max who brought unexpected joy to our daily routines. This is what healthy looks like, I realized one Sunday afternoon, watching Jason and Max playing in our modest backyard. This peace, this authenticity, this mutual respect. The journey hadn't ended. Healing rarely follows a neat, linear path. But with each month that passed, the weight of guilt and obligation lightened. I was building a life based on genuine love rather than manipulation, on mutual support rather than exploitation. And that made all the difference. 1 year after stopping my parents' mortgage payments, Jason and I celebrated our second wedding anniversary in our own home. The house was gradually becoming truly ours. Walls painted in colors we chose together, garden beds flourishing with perennials that would return year after year, just as we would. My relationship with my parents had settled into what therapists call structured contact, limited, boundaried interactions on my terms. After months of emotional messages and manipulation attempts, they had finally recognized I wouldn't resume financial support regardless of their tactics. Our communication now occurred primarily through occasional emails and carefully managed holiday gatherings. I declined one-on-one visits that might enable pressure or manipulation, instead suggesting public meetings or family events where others could provide a buffer. "I can meet you for lunch at Riverside Cafe next Thursday," became my standard response to contact requests, rather than the immediate yes that had characterized our relationship for decades. Some family members still viewed me as the villain in this story, believing my parents' narrative of abandonment. Others had gradually recognized the pattern, particularly as my parents attempted to secure financial support from them, using similar manipulation tactics. "Your mother asked me for a small loan last week," Aunt Vivian reported during one of our now regular coffee dates. When I suggested she look into financial counseling instead, she accused me of being heartless just like you. "Welcome to the Heartless Daughters Club," I replied with a sad smile. "We have jackets." The joke masked genuine grief for the loving relationship I'd never had and now understood I likely never would. Acceptance had replaced my desperate hope for change, a process Dr. Winters described as healthy disillusionment. Accepting your parents as they actually are, rather than as you wish they could be, is painful but necessary for your continued growth. She explained. That acceptance freed me to build relationships with extended family members on my own terms. I reconnected with cousins I'd rarely seen because of my mother's various feuds and rifts. I formed a particularly meaningful connection with my father's sister, Elizabeth, who shared stories about his childhood that helped me understand the origins of his financial irresponsibility. "Your grandfather was the same way," she told me during a visit to her home in Vermont. "Chronically in debt but always appearing successful to outsiders. Your father grew up believing that appearances matter more than financial stability." This context didn't excuse my parents' behavior, but helped me view it with more compassion and less personal hurt. They were products of their own upbringing, repeating patterns they'd inherited. The difference is you recognized the pattern and broke it, Jason observed when I shared these insights. That's no small accomplishment. Indeed, my financial life had transformed since ending their support. The mortgage payment that had drained my resources now built equity in our own home. We established healthy emergency savings, increased retirement contributions, and even began planning for potential future children with a dedicated college fund. You've made remarkable progress, our financial advisor noted during our annual review. Most couples take years to achieve this level of stability. We had motivation, Jason replied, squeezing my hand, and we had each other. Perhaps the most meaningful change was my relationship with money itself. The anxiety that had characterized my financial decisions since childhood, the constant fear of not having enough, the guilt about spending on myself, the compulsive checking of account balances, had gradually subsided. I bought concert tickets today, I told Jason one evening, without calculating how many hours I needed to work to justify them. He recognized the significance immediately. That's huge, Sam. It was. Small moments of financial freedom accumulated, creating a new relationship with money based on confidence rather than fear. 10 months after our confrontation, my father reached out with an unexpected email. Your mother won't admit it, but our situation is better since downsizing. The apartment is easier to maintain, and we're forced to be more careful with money now. I should have listened to your concerns years ago. It wasn't quite an apology, but it represented the first acknowledgement of reality I'd received from either parent. I responded with cautious positivity, and we established a tentative email correspondence that carefully avoided financial topics. My mother remained more resistant to accountability. During a carefully planned holiday dinner at a neutral restaurant, she made her first direct reference to missing my wedding. I hope someday you'll understand that parents deserve occasional self-care too. Our cruise was important for our mental health. The justification was so absurd I nearly laughed. Missing your only daughter's wedding isn't self-care, Mom. It was a choice that showed your priorities very clearly. She bristled, but instead of escalating, I changed the subject, another skill I developed through therapy. Some conversations weren't worth having, some battles weren't worth fighting, and some people weren't capable of the insight I'd once desperately sought from them. As my second year of financial independence progressed, Jason and I began discussing starting a family of our own. The prospect still triggered anxiety, but of a different quality than before. What if I repeat their patterns? I asked during a late-night conversation. What if those tendencies are buried in me somewhere? The fact that you're asking that question already sets you apart, he replied. You're aware of the patterns. You've done the work to understand them. That awareness changes everything. Dr. Winters agreed when I brought these fears to therapy. Breaking generational patterns isn't about being perfect. It's about being conscious of your choices, rather than automatically repeating what you experienced. She suggested creating a deliberate parenting philosophy, based on what I'd learned, identifying specific values and behaviors I wanted to embody with my own children. What financial lessons would you want to teach them? She asked. Responsibility without anxiety, I replied immediately. The value of money without fear of scarcity. Generosity that doesn't enable destructive patterns. We worked together to develop a framework for healthy financial parenting, drawing on both negative and positive examples from my life. Jason contributed insights from his own upbringing, where money had been discussed openly but appropriately. By our second anniversary, we felt ready to begin trying for a baby, secure in our financial foundation and emotional preparation. Though pregnancy didn't happen immediately, the planning process itself represented healing. I was ready to create a new generation with different patterns. My relationship with my parents continued its structured evolution. They never fully acknowledged the harm they'd caused, but small signs of growth emerged. My father attended financial literacy classes through their church, proudly sharing his certificate of completion. My mother took a part-time job at a local boutique, her first regular employment in decades. It's not the apology or transformation you deserved, Dr. Winters noted, but it's their version of growth, however limited. I learned to appreciate these small changes without expecting complete metamorphosis. People rarely transform entirely. especially after decades of entrenched behaviors. Accepting the limited relationship possible with my parents allowed me to focus energy on connections that nourished rather than depleted me. 2 years after our confrontation, we hosted a housewarming party to celebrate completing major renovations on our home. After considerable discussion, we invited my parents, a test of our new boundaries and their respect for our space. To my surprise, they attended, brought an appropriate gift, and behaved pleasantly throughout the event. My mother even complimented our design choices without backhanded comments. My father chatted amicably with Jason about the bathroom renovation they'd completed themselves. As they prepared to leave, my father paused at the door. "You've built a beautiful home here, Samantha. You should be proud." The simple acknowledgement of my achievement without reference to their situation felt like a tiny miracle. "Thank you," I replied. "That means a lot." They would never be the parents I had needed growing up. They would never fully acknowledge the pain they'd caused or the financial abuse they'd perpetrated. But we had found a new equilibrium. Not perfect, not always comfortable, but sustainable in a way our previous relationship never could have been. Later that night, after all guests had departed, Jason and I sat on our back porch swing, watching fireflies illuminate the summer darkness. "You know what I realized today?" I said quietly. "I'm happier now, with less contact with my parents, than I ever was trying to earn their approval and support through financial sacrifice." "That's because you're living authentically," he replied. "You're honoring your own needs and values rather than suppressing them to meet unreasonable demands." I nodded, watching the gentle light show nature provided. I wish I'd understood sooner that sometimes loving yourself means setting boundaries with people who can't love you properly. "You understood when you were ready," Jason said simply. "That's what matters." The journey from financial exploitation to independence hadn't been linear or simple. There had been moments of doubt, backsliding, grief, and anger. But sitting in our own backyard, in our own home, with our own future stretching before us, I felt the peace that comes from living in alignment with your values. My parents had skipped my wedding, but in doing so, they had inadvertently given me the clearest possible sign that I needed to prioritize myself and my new family. Stopping their mortgage payments hadn't just been a financial decision. It had been a declaration of my worth, my boundaries, and my right to build a life unburdened by toxic obligation. If you're watching this and struggling with similar family financial exploitation, please know you're not alone. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for healing. Your financial resources are an extension of your life energy, and you deserve to direct them toward your own well-being and future. I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Have you faced financial manipulation from family members? How did you handle it? What boundaries have helped you create a healthier relationship with money and family? Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about breaking unhealthy patterns, and share with someone who might need to hear that prioritizing their own financial health isn't selfish. It's essential. Thank you for witnessing my journey from obligation to freedom. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to stop enabling destructive patterns, even when it's painful. Your future self will thank you.